fire for your mind. Kosher Clinician.
I love black women. I love decent, hardworking, God-fearing black women who support their families.
Yes, sir.
I don't like degenerate, lying, false testify-giving women who put their man on child support even though he's been paying for you, and then turn around and lie to the court and say you're a deadbeat daddy and who alienate their children from their father. I don't like those type of women. And I will call them to the mat each and every time for their lies and their disparaging statements about black men, largely because what? That's what a father does. See, my sons turn 18, they will inherit the mantle of black men. Right. And all the negativity and the tropes that go with it. And it's not fair for my children, for my babies.
You're focused on black women fuckery. That's what you've always done.
Female fuckery, yes.
However, you are the problem.
How am I the problem?
You're the problem because every woman and every black woman is not that.
I never said they were.
Okay, then focus on the women that want the black
I am telling you why I do what I do.
You do what you do because you want money.
It is entertainment.
Because it's a scam.
That's what I do. This is not a scam, madam. You don't know what scam means. This is entertainment. People are not calling me to not get entertainment in return.
And should do, ought to do, you know, didn't do so well, and the mistakes that they've made as a collective. Which is fine, except we can't ignore the other half, which is black women.
Right.
And black women also need to have accountability because there can be no catastrophic failure of a community such that we've suffered as a black community with only one side of this coin being held accountable or one side of the coin being at fault, which is just men, and that the women don't have any culpability, they don't have any say-so, and they've never had a hand in what we have ended up in today, which is pretty much almost on the brink of extinction. Our community is as we know it. So that's why I'm so passionate about it.
No doubt, no doubt. And I think what you're saying is not only important, Crimson, but also is germane to the epigenesis of civilization. We live in a time now where reason and logic appears to be dissipating right before our eyes. And on top of that, there are pathologies that more or less prevent women from seeing the importance of masculinity and how masculinity is not only important to the mental health of a man, but also is important to the sustainability of a nation. You said something that was very poignant, Kenya, about your father and the importance of fathers and the importance of aggrandizing fathers. Why is that so important? And then we're going to get deeper into the topic as we talk about how kosher hypergamy is not only necessary, but kosher hypergamy is something that our ancestors and the women of old practice, which is more or less contraindicated to the women that we see now here in America.
Okay. Before I answer your question, just one thing. If there happens to be static on my end, I may refresh and drop off.
Okay, that's cool. You're fine.
Everybody's going to be able to hear that static.
Okay, cool.
But let me go ahead and answer that question. If I'm not mistaken, the question is about the use of hypergamy. Yes?
Yes.
Hypergamy? Okay.
Yes.
Let me start off by saying I think that hypergamy over the course of years, particularly in the manosphere, has gotten a bad rap.
Right.
A lot of people, when they hear the word hypergamy, it automatically puts a sour taste in their mouths. And the reason why it puts a sour taste in their mouths is because women nowadays don't practice hypergamy the way that it should be practiced.
Right.
They practice hypergamy in a way that is actually destructive to relationships and between women and men. The way that men are seeing hypergamy being practiced now is, say, for example, the monkey branching, right? From man to man. I get a man, and at the time in my life that we start a relationship, he's good enough. If I feel like I've excelled or achieved a certain level or gotten to a certain point in my life where this man isn't quite fulfilling what I think are my needs, instead of using that hypergamy to spur him into a particular direction, I decide that I need to look for another man that's of a higher status or whatever it is I'm looking for, and ensure that relationship as I shut down the last relationship. This is actually rather destructive. It doesn't facilitate trust. It actually facilitates mistrust between men and women. I don't know if y'all can hear that static. Can you?
Yeah, I can hear it, but you're fine. If you want to drop off and come back, you can, sis.
Let me come back.
Okay. All right. All right, guys. So we're talking about kosher hypergamy and carnal hypergamy, and Sister Kendra's going to pop back in a minute. But in the meantime, shout out to my man. Here she goes. All right, go ahead, sis.
My apologies.
No, you're fine.
So to continue on with the thought, and I hope that I'm answering your question.
Right.
Because I can go off on a tangent. So if I'm not answering your question, just reel me back in.
Right, I'll reel you back in. Go ahead, dude.
So it's destructive, and men are seeing it that way. And when they've gotten so many examples of that and understand that that is a corrupted form of hypergamy, of course, the concept of hypergamy is going to get a negative connotation. The reality is that hypergamy is a part of female nature.
Right.
Period. And aside from its literal meaning of marrying up in status, hypergamy is actually the desire of women to want better and better and better and better. We always want the best situation in which to survive, in which to have our children, in which to live. Now, we can't always facilitate that best situation. So we look for men that are going to help us facilitate whatever we think is the best situation. That goes from physical, biological standpoint, where typically we will avoid procreating with men that have congenital deformities or, handicaps or things that can be passed on in the gene pool, things of that nature. So we'll look for the strongest or the biggest or the, whatever. And that's from strictly a biological standpoint. We'll look for that. But aside from that as well, we look for a man's stability in his life, which includes, but is not limited to, his financial stability in his life. So this is a normal thing. When hypergamy is done properly, we don't monkey branch from man to man to man and do all of that stuff. We will get a man with the vision, with ambition, with a goal. And what we will do is use our femininity, spur him on in that goal. We're supporting it, but we're also spurring him. And I've used this example before. If I'm married to my husband and we have 2 children in a 2-bedroom apartment and I'm pregnant with a 3rd, now I'm going to use my hypergamy.
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit with my husband and I'm going to say, babe, we're in a 2-bedroom apartment. I'm pregnant with our 3rd child.
Yes.
We can't stay here. Okay. And what that's going to do is spur him into thought. Okay, now what can I do as the husband to remedy this situation? Because she's right. Can we have 3 kids in a 2-bedroom apartment? No, we can't. Now, does that mean I need to work more hours? Whatever that means for him to do, he's now going to try to do it. This actually makes him work harder. This makes him go up a level because in order to afford a bigger apartment or even a house at that point, he's going to have to do more.
Yes.
Right? That's hypergamy done properly.
Proper, no doubt. And the word kosher in Hebrew stands for fit and proper. And the Hebrew is called the skavah. The skavah means 7. And so my war cry has always been, if it ain't 7, it ain't kosher. If it ain't kosher, it ain't right. And it means completion because, and according to Yahweh, she'll take on what I said.
Well, here's the thing. Our grandmothers, right? Generation X. I'm assuming you're Gen X. Our grandmothers were greatest generation. And some of our mothers are boomers. And some of those women still held those traditional values. And I talk a lot about a value system. The women of today actually hold a different value system. we are seeing women in their masculine space.
Right.
Right. And the reason why we're seeing so many women in general in their masculine space, it really is because of feminism. And it would seem like an oxymoron. Feminism was meant to uplift women based on them being women. The actual outcome was the degradation of women by stripping them from their femininity, or separating women from their femininity by characterizing femininity and its traits as a weakness. So when we talk about being a man's muse, right? You mentioned earlier about being the Mona Lisa and things like that. We're a man's muse, and a lot of women don't understand what that means. A muse is something that you look at, or something that inspires you.
Yes, ma'am. Right.
It inspires you to greatness. It may inspire your creativity. It may inspire your thought process. It may inspire you in several different ways. So a muse, that's what a muse is. And it actually comes from Greek mythology. I do believe that the daughters of Zeus were called muses.
Right.
And so to be a man's muse is an integral part of femininity, but we live in a time and place where that is not celebrated, and it's and not even understood or known. So when you get a woman in this masculine space, you also get her in a transactional space.
Yes.
And that actually speaks to not returning love and things of that nature to men, because men, the relationship between men and women now is not based in love, care, support, or family, or any of those values. It's actually based on the transaction. How much can I get out of you? How much money can I get out of you? How much leisure can I get out of you? Like, okay, how much wealth? And it speaks to my 10-line values. How much wealth? How much leisure can I get out of you? How much of these things can I extract from you without actually giving you anything or much in return?
Right.
We call these schemes.
Schemes. Yes. Right. Excellent. Right.